Hello everyone, I am back. My name is Vanessa, and the name of this channel is called Gnostic Knowledge. And what I am doing on this channel is sharing the knowledge of gematria via the book Number Games 9/11 to Coronavirus. This is the latest book written by Zachary K. Hubbard. I finished reading his first book, Letters and Numbers, and I will tell you how you can get both of these books at the end of this reading. I would like to just begin reading in chapter 2. And chapter 2 is entitled 1968, the year of coronavirus and the 9/11 master plan. Okay, 1968 was a very significant year, full of tragedy and plotting. In terms of tragedy, one of many included a gunshot that ended Martin Luther King Jr.'s life on April 4th, 4/4, the well-remembered civil rights leader. For your gematria learning, his demise was on a date corresponding with the word kill summing to 44 using simple English, and shooting summing to 44 with Pythagorean, same as execution. Making matters all the more suspicious, his murder came 1 year to the day of his speech, Beyond Vietnam, a Time to Break Silence, given April 4th, 1967 at the Riverside Church in New York, where he said the heart of all that was wrong in the United States, including racism, was the U.S. military agenda that was responsible for bringing so much hatred, death, destruction, and darkness into the world. Perhaps it isn't a coincidence then that military sums to 44 with Pythagorean gematria, or that our history books state the assassination of Caesar took place in 44 BC, a man who led one of the greatest militaries of all time. After all, they do say the victors write the history books, and all roads lead to Rome. As for the Jesuit influence in the English language and its once secret gematria code, do not look past the fact that the word infantry has Pythagorean gematria of 44, or that soldier equates to 44 with reverse Pythagorean. In the case of the first word infantry, it has infant in it, showing that the cabal knows what they're doing, taking advantage of the youth and exploiting them for the purpose of their militaristic agendas. And with regards to soldier, it has the words SOL and DIE, soul and die, in it. Of course, sol is the Spanish word for sun, and it is the beginning of the word solar, relating to the sun's energy. At the same time, the last letter in the word is R, the 18th letter, corresponding with the gematria of IHS, as well as sun, as well as the age most people join the military at. Furthermore, the Jesuit logo is the sun with the acronym IHS in the middle of it. And you must keep in mind the text Art of War by Sun Tzu, emphasis on sun, was translated in 1772 by a Jesuit in France. And further, some historians contend there never was a Sun Tzu, a man who is believed to have died at either age 46 or 47, where Catholic and Vatican equate to 46 and 47 respectively, and of course France also sums to 47, reminding us of L'Enfant, who laid out Washington D.C., the 47th city, and the heart of the cabal's military empire. And if at this point you're thinking about the number 44 and MLK, and you're wondering about Barack Obama, a name summing to 68 with simple English, think 1968. who became president at age 47 and who became the 44th president elected 44 years after the Civil Rights Act, and who ran his campaign on hope, summing to 44 with simple English, then you're wondering about the right things, and yes, your questions will be answered. After MLK, another well-remembered gunshot came, ending Robert Kennedy's life, June 6th, 6/6, the man who brought the news of MLK's murder to the minds of many with his televised words. Also, not by coincidence, Robert Kennedy sums to 66, the same as his assassin, Sirhan, both with the Pythagorean cipher complementing the date of death, 6/6. Patterns such as these bring new meaning to the age-old expression, your number is up. We'll touch more on both assassinations ahead, and we'll even discuss JFK's and Lincoln's because they all come together through one number that points with great intensity at the Jesuit order. And for those that hate cliffhangers, I'll give you half of the story now. Martin Luther King Jr. was not born with the name. He was born Michael King Jr. The name he assumed, Martin Luther, was the name of the leader of the Protestant Reformation against the Catholic Church that transpired after he published the 95 Theses exposing the church's wrongdoings. For his efforts, the Jesuit order was created with the purpose of killing Martin Luther and his followers. Not by chance, the Jesuits were recognized by Rome on September 27th, the day leaving 95 days left in the year to counter the 95 Theses and Martin Luther's campaign at that time. And that time brings us to the fact that Martin Luther King Jr. was killed on the 95th day of 1968, a leap year, and also on a date with 95 numerology. You would add 4 plus 4 plus 19 plus 68, that equates to 95. That's the half of it. For your learning, you should also know that Jesus, Savior of men, a Jesuit motto, equates to 95 with reverse Pythagorean, and of course MLK was a follower of Jesus Christ. Moving on, the infamous year included the 1968 pandemic, also known as the Hong Kong flu, that reportedly killed at least 1 million and as many as 4 million people. 1968 was the year the term coronavirus was coined. 1968 was the year of what is believed to be the first documented HIV case coming from City Hospital, summing to 68 in reverse Pythagorean. 1968 was the year 911 was established as the emergency dialing code in the U.S., with the first call made on February 16, 1968, the 47th day of the year. 1968 was the year World Trade Center construction began in New York on the 74th Meridian West. 1968 was also the year George W. Bush, the president at the time of 9/11, graduated from Yale and Skull and Bones, a man with a July 6, 1946 birthday, meaning September 11th is the 68th day of his age every year. Seriously, what are the odds of that? The answer, about 1 in 365. Let us not forget his father's speech, the 41st President, George H.W. Bush, on September 11th, 1990, 11 years to the day, about a new world order and it being freer of terror. Of course, the word terror sums to 68 with reverse simple English, and as we know, that was W's favorite word. And more than a decade later, I'm still trying to figure out how to correctly write the way he would pronounce it. Terra, or terror. No matter how, W's father, H.W., was a member of Skull and Bones, the same as his father Prescott, and the same as W himself, and fittingly, Skull and Bones sums to 41 with the Pythagorean gematria, tying in with H.W. being the 41st president, and September 11, 2001, taking place on a date with 41 numerology. So, excuse me, some kids outside playing. So, 9/11/2001, you would add 9 plus 11 plus 20 plus 01, that equates to 41. Even further, the attack was blamed on Al-Qaeda, summing to 41 with simple English, similar to how Saudi Arabia equates to 41 with Pythagorean, where the majority of the hijackers were said to be from. Okay, keep in mind 41 is the 13th prime number, and Skull and Bones is the U.S. offshoot of the Bavarian Illuminati that was established with 13 families on May 1st, 1776. Skull and Bones is also a fraternity located at building number 322 on the Yale campus, a number they identify by. Just ask Tim Russert, who prior to his untimely death at age 58 asked both George W. Bush and John Kerry about being in Skull and Bones and the significance of 322, while they were the two respective candidates for a U.S. president in the 2004 race, Bush representing the Republicans and Kerry representing the Democrats. Adding to the relevance of the number, as we covered earlier, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt, died November 18, 1830, the 322nd day of the year, leaving 43 days remaining. As for the son, George W. Bush, being the 43rd president, he and his father attended Yale as stated. This matters because Yale sums to 43 with simple English, and you might recall how George W. Bush was announced the 43rd president-elect after Florida called the election in his favor. This was funny at the time because his brother Jeb was the current and 43rd governor of Florida, and not by chance, Florida sums to 43 with reverse Pythagorean gematria, same as Masonic. On the Masonic tip, the letters D, C, R, 4, 3. And don't forget that before H.W. was the 41st president, he was the 43rd vice president. And prior to that, he was the 11th director of the CIA, an alphabet agency with an acronym summing to 68 in reverse simple English. 1968 was the beginning of a new age, and not a positive one for humanity, but one that we're feeling the consequences of today. It is probably no accident then that the word age sums to 68 with reverse simple English, or that solar system equates to 68 with reverse Pythagorean, seeing as how it is the movement of the planets in relation to the sun and stars that dictates the age. As I write this, HBO has announced they're removing Gone with the Wind, summing to 68 in reverse Pythagorean from their movie platform, a classic title that opened the 1968 Cannes Film Festival that was ended prematurely by civil unrest and rioting. The reason for its 2020 removal, in the words of HBO, is that it needs to be culturally reframed in the wake of the George Floyd's in the wake of George Floyd's death and the rioting caused by the video of his death being shown in mainstream media thereafter. Thus, if the times are changing, so is the age, but we must understand these things are being forced and not coming about naturally or to anyone's benefit except the cabals. Man. For one more spark of the mind on the rigged selection of George W. Bush, and for the purpose of exposing how rigged the game is, when Florida was called in his favor, he received the winning 271st electoral college vote, the 58th prime number, connected to the Pythagorean gematria of George W. Bush, summing to 58. And yes, that is the same cipher that Freemasonry, Rosicrucian, Secret Society, and Solomon's Temple equate to 58 in. At the same time, Bush sums to 58 with reverse simple English, reminding that Tim Russert, who asked Bush and Kerry about Skull and Bones, didn't make it past the age of 58, dying on his 38th day of his age, where the words death, murder, killing, and RIP each have gematria of 38. Tim Russert, born May 7, 1950, and he died June 13, 2008. The day leaving 201 days left in the year. Next time you see the movie poster for Murder by Numbers, you'll be sure to notice two letters are changed to numbers, the E to a 3 and the B to an 8, thus 3 and 8 like 38. And on the subject of 58, never forget King James, who has the KJV Bible named after him, died at age 58 unexpectedly. He was a Rosicrucian and a Freemason. And for another reminder, biblical sums to 58 with reverse Pythagorean. We'll touch more on King James and the biblical riddle when we get to Kobe Bryant's suspicious death, January 26th, a day after being passed by LeBron James in all-time points scored, aka King James, in Kobe's hometown, Philadelphia. Never mind the Church of Philadelphia is referenced in Revelation 3:7, thus a city name having biblical roots, or that a cartoon named Chamberlain Heights foreshadowed Kobe's death in a helicopter crash in a November 16 episode, written 16/11 like 1611, the year the King James Version Bible was published. And while we're at it, never mind that Los Angeles Lakers and Kobe Bryant each equate to 58. Back on the subject of 1968, it was the year the Quran Code was reported to be discovered, showing how the Holy Book is encoded with the number 19 from cover to cover through simple calculations, such as how the 114 chapters of the text, or 114 surahs, are divisible by 19. 19 times 6 equates to 114. 1968 was the year Mohammed Atta was born, said to be the ringleader of the 19 hijackers on 9/11, and the oldest of the group, having turned 33 on September 1st, 2001, a standout age for self-sacrifice. It almost makes you say Jesus Christ. For the record, it was reported that his hijacked craft, Flight 11, flew into the 110-story World Trade Center towers that appeared as a massive number 11 in the skyline of the 11th state, New York, on the 11th day of the month. In light of the Jesus Christ point, consider September 11, 2001 is New Year's Day on the Christian Coptic calendar, and it is a date some researchers contend is the true birthday of Jesus, coming just 3 days after September 8th, the date the Catholic Church celebrates as the Virgin Mary's birthday. Furthermore, the name Jesus sums to 11 with Pythagorean gematria. When you're aware of this, you can understand why Revelation sums to 121 with simple English, a number having a square root of 11 and being the concluding book of the Holy Bible, dealing with the return of Jesus and the suffering the world must endure before that time. Okay? Keep in mind, when you add 1 through 11 together, it sums to 66, and Revelation is the 66th book of the Bible and the final book of the New Testament, summing to 66 with reverse Pythagorean. For another, math sums to 66 with reverse simple English, and of course, the New Testament begins with the book of Matthew. Matthew. Okay? Coming back to the man born in 1968, Ada, who died at 33, on what some would argue is Jesus' birthday. It is also noteworthy the word crucifixion sums to 68 using Pythagorean gematria. Another relevant word equating to 68 in light of the story of Jesus beginning in the book of Matthew is the word mathematics itself, using reverse Pythagorean cipher. Related to the value of mathematics summing to 68, the subject sacred geometry equates to 68 with Pythagorean gematria. If you have read my first book, Letters and Numbers, you are well aware of the relationship between the gematria of the English language and the sacred numbers of sacred geometry, and how those numbers connect to spiritual traditions, including Christianity and Jesus. For example, the most important shape in sacred geometry is the flower of life, that is made up of 61 overlapping circles, and those circles represent all of creation. Using reverse simple English, Jesus sums to 61, not unlike how church sums to 61 with simple English, or Christian sums to 61 with reverse Pythagorean, same as Christmas. To take it a bit further, there are 13 circles in what is known as the fruit of life in sacred geometry that rests in the middle of the flower of life, not unlike Jesus and his 12 disciples, or the sun and his 12 constellations, thus 13 and 13. Adding to the riddle with Jesus, who spoke in riddles, the word fruit sums to 74 with simple English, and 61 with reverse simple English, the exact same as Jesus and cross. Returning to Muhammad Ada, what was reportedly leading him to his great sacrifice on the 74th meridian west at the age of 33 were the master orders from Osama bin Laden, or cave dweller as the president called him. Not by chance, Osama bin Laden, cave dweller, and president each equate to 110 with simple English gematria, same as Adolf Hitler, the biggest historical villain next to Osama, who was born April 20th, 1889, the 110th day of the year. This set of 110 pairs perfectly with the 110-story tall twin towers that were proposed by the Rockefeller family, a surname summing to 110 with simple English as well. In the 10th chapter of this book, we'll discuss the Rockefeller Foundation's 2010 document, Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. In the document, it brainstorms the future potential control it brainstorms the future potential control structures of the world, and there is one referred to as lockstep style government, where there is a massive surveillance grid for the populace, authoritarian rule, and much pushback from the people. I bring this up because in the time of coronavirus and the writing of this book. Massive surveillance grids are being installed by governments worldwide under the guise of tracking carriers of the virus, and we do live in a very authoritarian top-down structure style of government, whether we realize it or not. And at the moment I am finishing this book, there is massive pushback worldwide as protests are held across the globe in remembrance of George Floyd, who was seen being murdered by a police officer on mass mind-controlled sets across the world, the TV. In George Floyd's memory, the name Martin Luther King Jr. is being invoked, who was of course assassinated in 1968 at the age of 39, not unlike how George or Gemini both sum to 39 in Pythagorean gematria, and George was killed in one of the twin cities, Minneapolis, in the time of Gemini, the twins, on the 93rd meridian west. The 93 matters because Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Martin Luther King Jr. sum to 93 in Pythagorean, similar to how Malcolm X sums to 93 with simple English, and the two civil rights leaders only met once in history, March 26, 1964, a date with 93 numerology. A date with 93 numerology. Like King, Malcolm X was also killed at age 39 on a date with 44 numerology, February 21st, 1965, by an assassin, Thomas Hagen, whose name sums to 44 with Pythagorean, and who received 44 years in prison to match MLK's 4/4 expiration, connecting with James Earl Ray, the accused killer of MLK, who died April 23, 1998, 44 days after his 70th birthday on March 10th. For the record, Malcolm X's assassin was a member of the Nation of Islam, summing to 58 in Pythagorean, same as Audubon Ballroom, where Malcolm X was shot dead. And to connect it back to George Floyd, he was killed by a 44-year-old officer, a title summing to 44 in Pythagorean. Officer equates to 44 Pythagorean, same as overseer, on the 44th parallel north in Minneapolis by a man named Derek Chauvin, summing to 58 with Pythagorean as well. Not by chance, the name Chauvin alone sums to 33 in Pythagorean, the same as police and the same as race war. At the same time, federal also sums to 33 with Pythagorean, and this is why Donald Trump first deployed federal police to Oregon, the 33rd state, who were reported to be snatching George Floyd protesters off the street with military tactics and unmasked and unmarked vans. Keep in mind, the headlines about federal police in Oregon first emerged on July 18th or 18/7, like 187, corresponding with the gematria of the nation's federal government headquarters, Washington, D.C., equating to 187 with reverse simple English, the same as Society of Jesus. At the same time, Portland equates to 44 with reverse Pythagorean, the same as Chicago. And this is why Trump announced he was dispersing federal police to Chicago after having success in Portland. You could say he was executing the federal police state by the numbers, a term equating to 44 with Pythagorean gematria. And in case you're not familiar with what a police state is, I'll use Google's definition only because they're one of the key companies in helping execute it, as we'll get to. Their definition is as follows: police state, a totalitarian state controlled by a political police force that secretly supervises the citizens' activities. I suppose the only difference being that in 2020 it is no longer a secret. Absolutely. Okay, now where was that? Alright. It is no longer a secret as we move ahead through this chapter. And as we move ahead through this chapter and this book, you'll understand more and more. This is exactly what is being built: a police state in the United States of America and across the world, something that has been in the works for several decades. Furthermore, it is being implemented based on a series of lies that in recent history includes 9/11 and the coronavirus outbreak of 2020. Speaking of the number 44, later in the chapter I'll teach you about the greater significance of the World Trade Centers falling to the ground 44 days after Tisha B'Av, also known as the 9th of Av, summing to 44 with reverse Pythagorean. It is the Jewish day of remember. It is the Jewish day to remember the destruction of the two temples, similar to the two towers or twin towers that were bombed in 93 and had their bombing blamed on the blind sheik, a nickname summing to 93 with simple English. And on the subject of 93, it is a number you must understand the meaning of. It represents time in two ways. One, we are told through science that the sun is 93 million miles away, and the sun is the timekeeper of our Gregorian calendar. This becomes all the more interesting when you realize God's Son, Nazareth, and crucifix each sum to 93 with the simple English. And God's Son, S-O-N, is what you're talking about. Never mind that we measure time with the thought of BC or before Christ and after. And never mind that in 2012, science claimed they had traced the date of Jesus' crucifixion to April 3rd, which is the 93rd day of the Gregorian year, tying in with the crucifixion lasting from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the Bible. The second time association with the number 93 is the planet Saturn, having simple English gematria of 93. Saturn is the most distant planet from the sun to the naked eye, known as the keeper of time to the occult. It is for these reasons Flight 93 was part of the September 11th ritual and the second plane to hit the Twin Towers, as reported to have crashed into the structure at 9:03 a.m. 9:03, man. For another related thought, the words atomic bomb sum to 93 using simple English, and the research for its creation was called the Manhattan Project. Of course, the World Trade Centers were in Manhattan, and when they collapsed, the site was called Ground Zero, a name that was only used to describe the point above or below ground where an atomic or nuclear bomb had detonated prior to September 11, 2001. With that in mind, ask yourself, what energy was used to turn those buildings to dust as they fell to the ground, falling in nice little neat piles covering New York in fine layers of the tower's remains? Could it have been a weapon developed by the Manhattan Project? Could it have been an atomic bomb? And why did the U.S. military detonate over 1,000 atomic and nuclear bombs, many of them below ground, for the better part of a century anyway? Not by chance, underground testing concluded September 23, 1992. Shortly before the 93 World Trade Center bombing on February 26, that presented the authorities with an opportune time to work under the buildings that were attacked below. Could this have been when the charges were set? No matter the answer, in the decades since the collapse of the World Trade Centers, there have been many health-related deaths for people of New York and many questions unanswered. In my opinion, it is fair to ask if fallout from the possible blast is the culprit. And for one last point about 93, at least for now, the last surviving pilot to drop the atomic bomb on Japan, a nation summoned to 93 with reverse simple English, died at age 93. He was Theodore Van Kirk. Adding to the 110 list and coming back to George Floyd, his death occurred in Minnesota, a state summing to 110 with simple English. And once again, it was reported that a police officer knelt on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, similar to how Muhammad Atta reportedly crashed into the World Trade Center at 8:46 a.m. local. For another, Dave Chappelle, the comedian with a name equating to 110 in simple English, made a bit in tribute to George Floyd titled 8 minutes 46 seconds. To take it further, the name George Floyd sums to 119 with simple English gematria, not unlike the way the majority of the world writes the date September 11th or 11/9. And adding further to the riddle, the last time there was a bit of a social push with marches and protesting prior to those in remembrance of George Floyd were the marches inspired by the Stoneman Douglas High School shooting in Florida, a school named after a woman from Minneapolis, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, where the school shooting happened Valentine's Day, February 14, 2018, a span of 119 weeks from the George Floyd killing, video being released May 26, 2020. Wow. The 119 pattern also reminds of the Rodney King riots that the George Floyd riots have been compared to. Those began April 29, 1992, after the police officers involved in his assault were acquitted on TV. Of course, April 29 is the 119th day of the Gregorian year, and Fraternal Order of Police sums to 119 with Pythagorean gematria. If you're not familiar with the FOP's logo, it has an all-seeing eye on it, summing to 119 with simple English. And FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police. Of course, I stated that earlier. But anyway. And for a couple more 119s, Osama bin Laden was reported dead May 2nd, 2011, a span of 119 weeks after Barack Obama became President. Obama, January 20th, 2009. Obama, better yet, Osama bin Laden's father reportedly died in a plane crash September 3rd, 1967, the day leaving 119 days in the year, and a date that can be expressed as 9/3. For the record, 1967 was the year of the Six-Day War won by Israel, and summing to 119 with reverse simple English, pairing with how the symbol of Israel's flag, the Star of David, sums to 119 in simple English, just like Orthodox. For another, New Jersey sums to 119 with reverse simple English, where the dancing Israelis were arrested on 9/11 at the Doric apartment complex. Now, what's going on here? Complex summoned to 322, and the number of skull and bones. I don't know, my book don't want to show the numbers, the letters. Oh, come on. Give me a second here. Here we go. So go over here. I gotta find. La 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 la. Here we go. So I will get back. For whatever reason, the words were blurred there for a minute. So I'm gonna go back about Israel because I sure want to read about this. For the record, 1967 was the year of the Six-Day War won by Israel, and summing to 119 with reverse simple English, pairing with how the symbol of Israel's flag, the Star of David, sums to 119 in simple English, just like Orthodox. For another, New Jersey sums to 119 with reverse simple English, where the dancing Israelis were arrested on 9/11 at the Doric apartment complex, summing to 322, the number of skull and bones, with reverse simple as well. If you haven't heard President Eisenhower's farewell address, where he warns the U.S. people of the coming military-industrial complex, summing to 322, in simple English, you should seek out that speech. He was warning us that something like 9/11 was coming if we didn't stop the growing thirst for a conflict that our nation's military strategy was based on. But who could have been behind all of this? Look no further than the Vatican, summing to 119 with reverse simple English, the heart of the same church that has been waging wars, especially with Islamic regions of the world, for centuries. And for those who doubt this now, make sure you finish the book because you won't doubt it later. Absolutely. To connect the dots even further between culture shaping events, to connect the dots even further between culture shaping events, we've already drawn parallels between. Let us examine the number 33. In the case of Rodney King, he was beaten on March 3rd, or 3-3, by the LAPD, summing to 33 with simple English. This is similar to how police sums to 33 with Pythagorean, and how Trayvon Martin was buried on March 3rd, and how the rioting began after Floyd's killing on East 33rd Street in Minneapolis, and that the killing officer Chauvin has a surname summing to 33 with Pythagorean, and that the Cops TV show was dropped by Paramount after its 33rd season because of the George Floyd protests, while Detroit was erecting a statue of RoboCop in 2020, 33 years after the 1987 film, during a time of a national discussion about defunding human police. This is BS. The number 33 is a hallmark of the cabal, and it has everything to do with why the World Trade Centers lasted for 33 years, 1968 to 2001, and why Jesus was crucified at the youthful age of 33. As we're beginning to understand, these tragic and impactful events of modern and biblical times are being contrived in accordance with Scripture to fulfill biblical prophecy. Not by chance, the word Bible sums to 33 with reverse Pythagorean, as does Sunday, the only day of the week that has a connection to the number, and the day that was made the one to worship on by force by the Catholic Church, reminding that the Jesuit logo is the sun, connecting to the name of the day, Sunday. And for the record, Sunday and Jesuit are the exact same in 3 out of the 4 base ciphers, summing to 21, 78, and 84. And in light of Scripture and number games, think about how Genesis 11:9 is where the story of God destroying the Tower of Babel ends. In light of the demise of the Twin Towers on 11:9, 9/11. Man, this is crazy. These people are sick, but this is what they're doing. So I'm going to reread that to put it in context. But in light of scripture and number games, think about how Genesis 11 chapter verse 9 is where the story of God destroying the Tower of Babel ends, in light of the demise of the Twin Towers on 11/9. Wow. As for the word prophecy, it sums to 110 with the reverse simple English gematria, bringing clarity to why it is used in the way it has from 9/11 with the 110-story towers to the George Floyd killing in Minnesota. Wow. This is something else. To connect a gematria-based relationship with 33 and 119, consider that pineal sums to 33 with reverse Pythagorean gematria, as in the pineal gland or the mind's eye, and the Masonic phrase all-seeing eye that relates to the pineal gland sums to 119. Okay, that relates to the pineal gland, sums to 119 with simple English. Through the TV, or better referred to as the television, the cabal has a window into the mind's eye of the masses, and through the TV as well as other popular media, they are actively programming the populace with regularly scheduled programming, as they often call it. This programming's purpose is to steer the behavior of people in the direction of their ongoing agendas that boil down to giving the cabal greater and greater control over humanity, while disarming the people of their God-given liberties under the guise of safety and protection. Their objectives are arrived at through the repetitive strategies of order out of chaos, while broadcasting fear before delivering a predetermined solution. The other important point is that they achieve these objectives with greater and greater spiritual wickedness as time passes on. To take it further, there is an occult belief about spiritual ascension up the 33 bones of the human vertebrae that leads to enlightening the mind's eye or the pineal gland of a person. It is in this belief where the occult significance of 33 resides, and the likely reason for both people and person equating to 33 with Pythagorean gematria. The name of the belief is Kundalini, summing to 58 with reverse Pythagorean, complementing the 58 values of Freemasonry and secret society as we covered prior. For another 58, the four-letter name of God, Tetragrammaton, sums to 58 with Pythagorean, and Kundalini is about connecting with God. Okay, it is because of Kundalini that Freemasonry is fixated on the number 33. And despite Freemasonry being all about self-improvement, including spiritual, and that being the true purpose of the knowledge they study, including the Bible, Kabbalah, Kundalini, Hermeticism, and alchemy, the cabal has taken the knowledge and turned it on its head, pushing darkness to prevent the people of this earth from reaching enlightenment. They do this because people in the dark without light are much more easily contained, controlled, and exploited. And by the way, the word they, sums to 58 with simple English. Now you'll know what to say the next time someone asks the common question, who are they? That's amazing. What is being done to humanity at this moment in history is the knowledge of our ancestors is being inverted. And instead of helping people spiritually ascend, the cabal is causing their mass media mind control weapons to pump non-stop fear, division, and chaos encoded with occult wisdom to keep us in a low vibrational state so that we are less likely to think and more likely to follow without fear with a coward mentality. Cowherd or the coward, that's crazy. Cowherd mentality. Man, thus, those of us who have the light and who aren't afraid are those who will help free our brothers and sisters from darkness. And that is why it is important we never quit. It is important we never quit in our quest, and we know our self-worth no matter how difficult the path of truth becomes. That includes not only helping our friends and families, but also strangers who will listen. In doing so, we can help them escape the matrix of misinformation that steals their time, does damage to their energy levels, and programs them with the wrong thoughts and behaviors helping them escape the matrix, avoiding false history. I'm sorry, I messed up the last. Let me see. Helping them escape the matrix includes avoiding false history, politics, bogus religious teachings, news, mass mind control, entertainment, and even pro sports that are rigged to the core and synced with the agendas. Case in point, 1968 was the year the New York Jets went on to have their only Super Bowl winning season, starring Broadway Joe, who guaranteed it. New York Jets 9/11. Never mind that Joe Namath sums to 33 with Pythagorean, similar to New York equating to 33 with reverse Pythagorean, and his team's feat would begin a 33-year countdown to the demise of the buildings that were engineered and advertised to withstand impact from a commercial jetliner because of how tall they were, towering over the rest of Gotham City, as it is known in Batman, where in the 33rd episode of the old hit TV show titled Fine Finny Fiends, Skull and Bones is referenced as being part of the Bruce Wayne family legacy. And for your gematria learning, the alumni of Skull and Bones are referred to as Bonesmen, summing to 33 with Pythagorean gematria. 1968 was also the year Boeing in Seattle, Washington debuted their jumbo jetliner. The city of Seattle is noteworthy because the construction firm that built the World Trade Centers, Magnuson and Clemenick Associates, is headquartered in Seattle, Washington as well, and the name Seattle, Washington sums to 68 with Pythagorean gematria. And I want to spell the name Clemenick. It is K-L-E-M-E-N-C-I-C. Magnuson and Clemenick Associates. I'm not sure, but that's how you would spell it. Anyway, for another dot you might otherwise not connect, the Seattle Seahawks won their only Super Bowl 48 that was hosted by New York and New Jersey at the Jets Stadium. When the MVP of the game took the podium to speak after its conclusion, a man grabbed his mic and said 9/11 was an inside job. I remember that. Keep in mind, the common terminology for an inside job is false flag, summing to 48, same as Seahawks, both using reverse Pythagorean. Furthermore, the MVP of Super Bowl 48 was Malcolm Smith, summing to 48 with Pythagorean gematria. Think about it. What are the odds? To get even more astronomical, the Seattle Seahawks, summing to 43 with Pythagorean, who won the game with 43 points. It's a fitting score because football sums to 43 with reverse Pythagorean, and the sport is credited to Walter Camp, a Skull and Bones member who attended Yale, summing to 43 as covered. This should clear up the things. This should clear up things. I don't know. I messed this up. This should clear things up the next time you see the Batman film, The Dark Knight Rises, where a football stadium explodes only after Section 322 is shown. For another kick, the only player on the field who survives the fictional blast in the film is number 86, reminding of August 6th, the date of Hiroshima, a date that can be expressed as 86 or 68. Adding to the number riddle, Hines Ward, Hines Ward, the retired NFL receiver who played the part of number 86 in the film, finished his NFL career with 86 touchdowns, 85 receiving and 1 rushing. And of course, he wore 86 for his NFL team, the Steelers, that played at Heinz Field, H-E-I-N-Z, Heinz Field. When you have eyes to see, you realize pro sports are nothing but number games and absolutely weaved in as part of the matrix of riddles the cabal has wrapped around the populace. This knowledge will also bring new meaning to that often repeated line the sports commentators. The often repeated line by these sports commentators, you couldn't have scripted it any better. It is truly a slap in the face, especially when you see what is going on. Okay, and with that said, I am going to end my reading on page 46. And before I leave, I do want to tell you how to get the books that Zachary K. Hubbard has written. The book Letters and Numbers you can get by visiting his YouTube channels, Gematria Effect Sports and Gematria Effect News. And in the description of each of the videos that he produces, he leaves a link for you to purchase the book. The book costs $5, the best $5 you'll ever spend in your life. And the book will come to you via email as a PDF file. So be sure you save the file. He left the copyright off the book so that you can have it bound into a book for your own personal library. There are over 700 pages in this book, so keeping it in the electronic file format is great because when you're looking for information, it makes it so much easier to find it in that format. But you can take the book to your local bindery or email, contact your local bindery, but you can have it bound into a book, or you can upload it to lulu.com and they will bind it into a book for you as well. I haven't done it yet myself, but I will eventually do it. I'm going to do it next month, as a matter of fact. I've already told myself that I'm going to do it. And also, the book that I'm reading from now, Number Games, 9/11 to Coronavirus. You can get this book now. It is available on Amazon as a pre-order, and the book will be released on October 13th for the physical book. I believe you can also get the partial book on Kindle right now. But if you don't want to order it from Amazon, you can go on Zachary K. Hubbard, and this is the young man that wrote the book, Zachary K. Hubbard, and you can go on his blog page, gematriaeffectnews.blogspot.com, and order directly from him. And once you get to his blog page, the first thing you will see is the advertising for the book Number Games. And as you scroll through, it'll give you the instructions on how to purchase the book within the United States and abroad. But no matter what, just get the books, read the books. Also, read his blogs. He blogs every day, and he has a previous blog called freetofindtruth.blogspot.com. And he's been blogging there for over 6 years. So there's a lot of content there to consume, to familiarize yourself with what gematria is. But reading his books and learning how to decode on your own, that gives you the skill set. But yeah, he spoon feeds this information to you, and my goodness, it is just as plain as the nose on your face what is going on. And so I hope that you will give this video a like and a share, that so that someone else can find this information and share this information, or maybe start your own channel where you can read the book and share the information, maybe even better than I can. But this information needs to go forth. It needs to be known by every man, woman, and child that is not a part of the cabal. We need to know this information, and gematria can be stopped. Maybe not in my lifetime, but maybe the younger generation that's coming up, they need to know this information and stop it. I mean, we see what's going on. This is nothing magical anymore. All the things that I thought was taking place because of its prophecy, when you see that people that are in control can force things and make things happen the way they want it to happen, and by these numbers, it is just, man, that's what is going on. This is what's going on. Gematria, not in our everyday life, what we do on our own, but anything that's moving the masses of people via the government, it is being done via this alpha numeric code. And with that said, you guys have a good evening, and I will be back shortly to continue reading in chapter 2. All right. Bye-bye.